Hello, and welcome to Tips for Hiring Success in 2023 and beyond. I'm your host, Joe Bardi, Marketing Communications Manager here at FrankCrum. FrankCrum is a family-owned business that employs more than 400 people and is headquartered in beautiful Clearwater, Florida, which is where we're recording this webinar today. FrankCrum has been in business for 41 years, and there are now 3 core businesses that we operate: FrankCrum, FrankCrum Staffing, and Frank Winston Crum Insurance. At FrankCrum, one of our missions is to help you, our partners, be the best employers you can be. It's a challenging business environment out there. We've spent the last few months zeroing in on the topics that are going to be fundamental to your success in 2023. Things like hiring, employee benefits, safety, HR, tax, and much more. And we've taken what we know about these topics and turned that information into a series of educational webinars, the first episode of which you're listening to right now. So welcome. I hope that you'll make checking in with us a regular part of your routine throughout the year, as we have an interesting slate of upcoming live webcasts full of important info that will help you not only survive, but thrive in 2023. Before we get rolling, a few notes about how this webinar is going to work. All attendees will be muted, but we still want to hear from you. Please feel free to submit questions in the Q&A box on the right side of the screen. We'll answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. And if we don't get to your emailed question before we end, we will answer it via email, so all the questions will get answered. A recording of this webinar will be emailed to registrants within 5 days, and an on-demand recording of each episode in the series will be available on my FrankCrum and the webinar series page, which we will link to in the notes. Also, be on the lookout for a post-webinar survey, which will be hitting your email inbox shortly after this ends. Your comments are invaluable to us in improving the quality of these webinars, and we thank you in advance for any and all feedback. All right, let's get to it. Today's topic is tips for hiring success 2023 and beyond. Businesses are fueled by people, but it's not always easy to attract, hire, and retain them. As we begin 2023 with a tight labor market and a lot of economic uncertainty, hiring decisions are more important than ever before. My guest today is Andres Rojas, Business Development Executive at FrankCrum Staffing. Andres has a unique background in that he came to the staffing industry after a long career in the financial sector. Whether it's staffing or finance, the goal for Andres is the same: keep the focus on people and resources. Andres takes an educational approach to working with clients and has seen it resonate with organizations like the United Way and Metropolitan Ministries, to name a few. He's also led implementation of corporate financial wellness programs throughout the state of Florida. Andres joined FrankCrum Staffing in 2021 and brought with him a deep understanding of the challenges hiring managers face every day. He's here today to provide insight into our current employee-driven market. Andres, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Joe. Glad to be here. Appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I think that this is going to be something that my goal for me would be to provide as much value as I can to all the listeners and the audience that we have here today with us, and ultimately just share with them what we're seeing from a day-to-day schedule, right? And what we're seeing in the communities, and then bring that back to one platform where everybody can learn and have some good takeaways.
Right on. All right, so let's get it rolling with this. We just 22 just wrapped up. We're now into 23. A month is already gone. Yeah. What are you seeing as the big trends that are sort of affecting hiring as we start this new year?
Yeah, so we're in February already, so this year is already well on its way, and I think that as we look at a lot of the trends from a hiring perspective, we're seeing that Q1 is going to have the most acceleration around hiring talent, right? And a lot of companies, whether they're small or large, are looking to make those decisions within the first quarter of the year. Now it's taken back to say, okay, how are those decisions going to be made? What are they going to look like? And how do I get the talent that I'm looking for? So there's a lot of trends that are happening right now, from acquiring to retaining, a lot of competitive advantages that we're seeing as well. So, again, looking forward to just running through a couple of those with you, and then seeing if we could also take a couple of those check marks, right, and kind of check those off the list for everybody that's listening today.
All right. So let's start with this. There's been a lot of talk about a possible recession in 2023. Inflation has been a major topic of conversation. There's been a ton of debate. Before I ask you about that, I want to do our first poll question of the day. This is for everybody listening.
Sure.
The poll question is, how likely is a recession in the US in 2023? We'll give everybody a minute to answer here real quick. Your choices are obviously unlikely, likely, or highly likely.
I'm curious.
I'm curious too to see what everyone says. I know as they answer, I'm personally leaning no, just because everyone says yes. So be a contrarian. But I have no formal training. So
yeah. There's some things that are going on, that make me sway to the no side. I'm gonna wait till everybody answers, but
okay, it's interesting. So we have I'll give it 15 more seconds. 70% of the folks have voted.
Okay.
And there is a clear, the results are shifting a little, but there's a clear leader in the clubhouse. So
let's see what they are.
So what we have is, all right, so clearly number one, and now running away with it with 85% voting. Feel free to keep voting as you go, but 64% say a recession is likely.
Okay.
And then 18% for both unlikely and highly likely. So it feels like this group really does feel like there is a recession on the way.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about sort of, how whether we have a recession or not, what does that do to the hiring, to hiring in 2023?
So, I think everybody, even as an individual, right, we're kind of like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? So those polls are right where they need to be. I wish I had that answer, right? If I give you the solid answer, I mean, I think that would be incredible. Truth of the matter is, I think that we just need to stay proactive to whatever that outcome may be, right? So whether that outcome is we're going into a recession and we jump into that, or we don't, right? And a couple of reasons, and one that really stands out to me is typically when we saw this happen back in 2008, 2009, we also saw a decrease of employment, right? We saw a decrease of open jobs out in the market, which kind of led to ultimately the recession, right?
Right.
This time, it's completely different. This time, we're seeing inflation's rate being the highest it's ever been, right? I think it tipped over to 7% at one point. It's back down to 6.5%, but still extremely high. You're seeing a lot of increase with goods, right, and everyday purchases. But then when you look at the employment sector, you're seeing a ton of job openings available, right? I mean, to the tunes of millions. So a very different situation of where we were in the first recession to where we are right now. The job openings give me a good indicator that we may not go full force into a recession.
Okay.
Again, I don't have that answer.
Sure.
But what I can tell you is that a lot of companies right now still have that opportunity to join their team. Pay is a huge discussion as well. And then acquiring the talent that they're looking for, and ultimately compensating for the talent that they're hunting for.
So let's sort of jumping off of that, the specific numbers, job openings versus available employees. We hear these stories of a massive lack of skilled workers, but the unemployment rate is still sitting at 3.5%, which is historically very low.
Right.
What are some tips for businesses that need to hire someone but are having trouble finding skilled workers, even as the economy at large may be contracting?
Mm-hmm. So talent that's out right now, I have a saying, right? When you know you're good, right? You know it, and a lot of other folks know it, right? What I mean by that is that when you're applying for jobs and you have certain valuable skills, you're going to set yourself apart, and that's usually at a mid-level to senior level position. But when we're talking about business owners that are looking for the everyday labor, the entry level positions, those positions require skilled laborers, and they're seeing a hard time finding individuals to do the job, right? And as they continue to scale their business, they need the headcount in order to scale it. What a lot of my clients have been doing, and what I always tell folks, is to extend your hands out to the community. You have a lot of resources out there, such as Career Source, a lot of technical schools that are putting students through skill trading programs where they're coming out forklift certified, certified welder, a lot of those positions that you need in order to scale your business, whether you're across many different industries, right? It always starts with the people that kind of have their boots on the ground, so to speak. So partnering, extending your hand, outreach programs, and also encouraging to have a conversation with local firms in your area.
Right on. Taking off again from that idea of people reskilling and getting skills. We've heard a lot of talk in the last year about the Great Reshuffle, which saw people changing jobs at a historically high rate.
Yeah.
We also heard plenty of new terms that have entered the lexicon, things like rage applying, silent quitting, which all seem to be different ways of describing a climate where employees are emboldened to jump ship. How do the attitudes of the employees impact the hiring process?
Yeah, so I think one that I like a lot, I don't like it, but I hear it a lot, is ghosting. You know, you hear the term ghosting. It's just recruiters or hiring managers having such a hard time to get a candidate in the seat just to have a conversation. You know, so ghosting is out there as one of those fun terms that we like to throw around. But when we look at the Great Reshuffle, let's go back to that a little bit, because I think that's it's important to understand the why. What was the reason behind the Great Reshuffle? Many believe it was COVID, and in fact, to some extent, sure, it was. But I don't know if it fueled the Great Reshuffle entirely.
So let's dig into that a little bit, and actually let's start with a poll, with our second poll question for everyone listening. What is the primary reason for the Great Reshuffle?
Good question.
And we have the multiple choices are lack of meaningful work, inadequate total compensation, lack of career development and advancement, uncaring and uninspiring leaders. And we'll give everyone a few seconds here to answer. Great Reshuffle was really my favorite term out of the last year. It makes work seem like card playing or something, which is really sort of interesting. But it was definitely very real as people were moving all over the place. And I know before preparing for this, I thought it was COVID drove the whole thing. And now I am aware that that is not actually the case.
It affected a lot of people. It's one of those changes that it hit home for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
No matter what stage of your career you were in, it resonated because you knew somebody that was going through a career change.
Right.
Where in the past it didn't have that dramatic effect. So you're right. Great Reshuffle was a huge play into it. So curious to see what.
All right. So here's what we got. The number one answer was 45% of the vote was inadequate total compensation.
All right.
Number two with 24% was uncaring and uninspiring leaders. Number three, 17% lack of meaningful work. And number 14, and fourth with 14% was lack of career development and advancement. So let's talk about the real sort of drivers behind the Great Reshuffle, though, because it wasn't necessarily just COVID.
Right. So a lot of good answers, and truthfully, all of them are right. You know, everything played a role into that Great Reshuffle. It was a little bit of it was a reverse, just a bit. The largest reason was lack of career progression, and where individuals just felt that they were reaching a glass ceiling. COVID did put a constraint on a lot of organizations to stop the hiring process for the time being. They were pivoting, right, to remote work, to hybrid model schedules, keeping everybody safe in the workplace. So there was a large pause that happened where a lot of individuals felt that their career came to a standstill. So they were looking for their next move and how do I further my career? Unfortunately, a lot of individuals had to make a change in order to do so. So that was one of the biggest ones. Inspiring leaders, I believe, was top three when it came to just driving a team and feeling welcomed, right? Or feeling more or less as if you have a purpose. Inspiring leaders was one of those. And then total compensation, which I know a lot of people talk about that right now, right? Is just how do you get that top dollar? And a lot of business owners and hiring managers are dealing with the same challenges of just large amounts of salaries being asked for certain positions. And there's an adjusting period that needs to happen. And I think that's kind of where we're heading. So those were the top three reasons for the Great Reshuffle. So understanding those, I think, is going to help us kind of take it into 2023 and share some of those best practices that we've been seeing.
Going back to compensation, one thing I should tell the listeners, we do have 4 handouts available, salary guides for call center employees, e-commerce, manufacturing, and supply chain. They're available for download on the right side under the handouts.
Yes.
When we talk about big employers, we hear a lot about perks as part of the compensation. When it comes to small and medium-sized businesses, are there things they can do to help them better compete against employers or be better positioned to meet the expectations of job seekers?
Yeah, we see this one a lot. Truth of the matter is that the large corporations are able to spend, right? They have a bigger budget cut out for it. We went through this starting in 2021. So a lot of large organizations have already made the changes or have already created a set budget in order to compensate, right?
Okay.
In order to create perks and benefits within their organization. Now, for a smaller company that may not have the budget to do so, I think that we have to focus in on flexibility for an employer. That right now is critical, is that work-life balance between how much flexibility am I getting within my schedule. A lot of the hybrid models and remote work played a part into just influencing employees to say, hey, I may need a half a day on Wednesday because I have mom and dad stuff I need to get done. So I think that as a smaller scale business, focusing in that middle sector, which I think, I'm sure, I believe that is the middle of the pack of the reasons on why individuals left the workplace to begin with, was just that flexibility. So,
right.
How do we get better at that?
Okay. So one good way to avoid having to hire people in the first place is to hanging on to the good employees that you already have. Which, when I hear you talk about sort of the level of competition and all the things that are going on, the changes in the broader market, it seems like hanging on to your employees is like critical. Absolutely. But at the same time, we have the Fed is concerned about rising wages, which are driving up inflation.
Right.
Talk about the presentation of total benefits to current employees. Like, are there ways for companies to make sure that they are familiar with whatever the current market rates are for pay and ways to find ways to hang on to those people?
Yeah, so a couple things, right? Being proactive. The inflation number is the inflation number, right? Me and you are, unfortunately, we can't control it. So the inflation number is the inflation number. Where I think we have to get really creative is how do we be proactive to that number, and how do we make sure we understand the why behind our good talent that we already have. So one, we understand the reasons on why people are leaving, right? So definitely revisit those reasons with your current employees. We like to call that stay interviews, right? It's just gauging where are they in their career, also in their life. Is there things happening that as a business owner you can adjust to? I'll speak for myself. I have a newborn, right? How am I adjusting, right? And my family adjusting to that, also balancing work, right? So figuring out the why of your employee, I think, is very important right now. Being proactive to that rate, and figuring out, what is the driver? Does my employee have a packed schedule Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday due to soccer practice, right? Or is it Thursday and Friday that they're really stressed out? So understanding those tickers, those motivators, what days out of the week are busier for your employee within their personal life, where as an owner you could adjust and say, I understand. How about we talk through what a Wednesday afternoon looks like for you? And then again, creating and offering that flexibility back to your current talent.
And so you're saying flexibility it's not a replacement for salary or anything like that, but it can mitigate things.
I've had a ton of clients that aren't able to compete necessarily with the salary, right, of a large organization that's trying to really come in and just take all the good talent, right?
Okay.
But they are able to compete when it comes to making decisions very quickly and being able to pivot and offer that flexibility. So sometimes it's not all about pay. Sometimes it may be that I could make it to my child's soccer practice on a Wednesday afternoon,
sure,
and not feel stressed out about the job, the work, and the tasks that I have to do. So understanding the why and what's motivating your employee, and everybody's going to be a little bit different, But again, how can you create that flexibility as an owner and as a leader back to your team?
So I can almost hear people listening to us talking right now and thinking, you know, this all sounds great, but do I do this recruitment myself? Like, how do I do the recruitment?
Yeah.
What do you tell people who are just sort of like starting on this journey of finding folks?
Yeah, so I come from a different world, and when I jumped into recruiting and the staffing industry, I mean, I was blown away in the amount of effort, time, and work that recruiters put into finding talent. And there's different types of recruiters, right, for different types of needs. You have some that are very focused on a large headcount, getting numbers of employees into a company to drive a certain initiative that they may have an open order on the table and they need X amount of employees, right? So that recruiter is working very tough and diligently to find the right talent to fit. Where other recruiters are working very diligently to have a headhunt strategy to say, I don't need everybody, I just need the right person for this key role in this organization. But nevertheless, however you look at it, recruitment is an 8 to 12-hour job sometimes. So can you do it yourself? Absolutely. Is it going to be time consuming? 100%.
Okay.
What happens sometimes when you take the approach of doing this yourself is that you start to avoid some of the red flags. You start to hire out of desperation. The lack of somebody being in a position puts a lot of stress on the rest of the team.
Sure.
And I think as leaders on this call, we understand that. We also have to take a look and say, okay, am I avoiding some of those red flags and hiring out of desperations just to get somebody in the seat because my team is feeling the pressure, So I always encourage, get a third party, get a different perspective on what's happening, but also take an approach of working with a partner, a resource, or even an outreach program that's going to be able to have a more of an understanding of what the town looks like, what do you need, and then how can we provide, and then ultimately just connecting the dots with the right partner.
Gotcha. All right, so which sort of brings us to our third and final poll question. This is a slight change of topic, but totally on the same subject. The poll question for everyone listening: does your company describe its culture as a family?
Yeah.
And we're going to let them go, and then as it says, obviously yes, no, I don't know, and
this one should be popular.
we have 34% responses already, and it's all yes. Oh, we had our first no.
Got a no?
Yeah, we have one no. 95 to 4, 96 to 4. Yes is in the lead. 63% of the results in. I love the horse race aspect of the poll. Thank you everyone for voting and participating. We really appreciate it. Exactly. And I feel like I'm learning. It's great.
Yeah.
And apparently describing your company as a family is incredibly popular because right now we are at 96% said yes.
Yeah.
4% said no, and no one said I don't know, which is really a credit to all of you. You were paying attention to your own corporate cultures. So the reason I bring this up is that this is another sort of hiring trend that we've noticed. Yes. The idea of describing yourself as a family versus other ways of sort of encapsulating your corporate culture. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think we went through a change, right? I think it was another moment of change for the workforce, where working as a family or feeling like a family environment was something that we would hang our hat on, right? And I think we still do, and it's very important to know that. But I think we have to take a look at the other side of the coin, which is who's coming into the workplace, right? So you have a lot of millennials that are already working, already in some leadership capacities, but you also have the Gen Z generation that's also coming into the workplace, and it's understanding what does that mean to them, right? What does it feel like a family mean to them? What I'm seeing right now the most is that a lot of folks that are coming into the workforce, or they're even looking for a change, they're looking to be in an environment where it's collaborative, inclusive, where they have a voice, they have a seat at the table, and they can ultimately bring their skill set or their values and experience to work towards an initiative that this organization may have. So I think that it went from being taken care of, right? Okay. Family, right? To can I work in a collaborative environment where I can bring my skills to your organization to reach the end goal together.
Gotcha.
So a little bit of a shift, a different approach, a different mindset. But again, as leaders, I think that we need to understand is who's coming in, right? And what's important to them. And that's not for everybody, but that's what we've been seeing as we're out there engaging with a lot of companies and also engaging with the talent pool.
So let's tie this all together because we want to give you guys some questions. So I'll ask you this one more question, then we'll do a couple Q&A questions here. So tie this all together for business in 2023. We talked about the challenges of hiring, the challenges of the job market. What's the right balance for an employer weighing market trends versus employee expectations? Just sort of tie it together. If you're looking to hire in 2023,
what does it look like?
Yes.
So I would really focus on two things. One is understanding your wages. So understand what the current market is dictating for a certain position. For us that have been in business for a long time, that's challenging, right? And it's a shift because one position that was X salary is now almost double the salary, right?
Right.
In your eyes, same job, what's the difference? How do I adjust? Inflation, all this crazy, right? So understand exactly where you are from a hiring perspective when it comes to wages. That way you're not overpaying, right? But also you're not underpaying where you're getting talent that's just not a fit for you. And then also suffering on the retention, right? Because
Gotcha.
You're going to go through a period where you're hiring in, folks are leaving, and you're going through this mean cycle. And honestly, it's taken a lot of time and effort on your part and on your team's part. So understand the wages. I think you mentioned it earlier. We have some resources out there.
We do our salary guide. Again, salary guides are available for download in the handout section on the side. You guys can all grab them.
Yeah, that way you could take a look to say, okay, what should I be paying for this position? And again, don't forget, if you can't align to that compensation, can you be heavy on the flexibility side? Can you be heavy on the career progression side for somebody that may be coming out of university, coming into the workplace? So there's many ways that you can get creative. It's not all compensation, but it is very important to understand where you are or where you should be in regards to paying. And the second thing that I would say hiring for 2023 is to really be open. And what I mean by that is be open to conversations with individuals that you may have not had in the past. So we're seeing a big trend right now where it's transferable skills. Okay. Somebody coming from one industry going into another industry. I can speak for myself. That happened, right? But how do those transferable skills apply to your business, and does it make sense for you to hire from another vertical, so to speak? You'll be surprised. 9 times out of 10, the answer may be yes. But if it's not, then don't forget about all the resources that you have as a community. I know that I have a link that I love to share so we could get it out there.
Okay.
Just around some of the resources that you have around wage projection, and then also around community outreach to partner up with the right individuals to give you some of that talent.
We'll share that for sure. All right, we got like 2 minutes or less left, so speed round real quick. All right. Some questions that we got. What is the most common or go-to flexible schedule to stay competitive?
Oh, that's a good one. What we see the most, it's either midweek or it's a Friday.
Okay.
Fridays are always appreciated.
Sure.
Midweek is typically get things done during the week so you can enjoy the weekend, and for that, employees are forever grateful.
Okay. And then we had one. I'm thinking of doing a sign-on bonus. What are some of the best practices for my sign-on bonus to be competitive?
Yeah. So a benchmark that we see often is typically about $1,000 sign-on bonus for positions that are entry level that you may need a ton of. But remember, with the sign-on bonus, I always like to make sure I'm transparent with that, is that the sign-on bonus is a Band-Aid. It's not a forever fix. You're going to get some folks in there, partner with somebody so you're not exhausting your options with sign-on bonuses. But typically, to be competitive, if that's the route you want to take, you're going to fall within $1,000 to about a $1,500 sign-on bonus.
Right on. Thank you so much, Andres, for all of your time and the answers. That was fantastic. I want to thank everybody for listening. A reminder, we're going to be sending you a survey after this is over, and we appreciate any and all responses. So please let us know how we did. Just a reminder, you can download your salary guides for supply chain, manufacturing, call center, and e-commerce on the side. Join us for the next Employee Fundamentals webinar, which will be taking on, is the work opportunity tax credit worth it? When my guest will be Dana Allison, who is FrankCrum's Director of Tax and Unemployment. That will be Wednesday, March 22nd at 11 a.m. If you were doing this webinar for credit, here is the number that you need for the HRCI 617528. And that is it. Thank you, everybody. And we will be back on March 22nd with our next installment.
Awesome.
Oh, you're right. I have to mention one more thing. This webinar will be available. We'll actually email it out within 5 days, and it will be available for download on the webinar series webpage, which we will link to as well. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.